Hey guys, it's me, Shane. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different on my channel. Usually I'm talking about movies, but today I wanted to talk about something else I've been getting into recently, and that is comic books, specifically Marvel and DC. So I've always been interested in superheroes, and I've read comic books from time to time. But in the past year, I've really been getting into reading like classic stories, picking up single issues and trying to follow along. And yeah, just really getting back into the origins of where a lot of these superhero movies come from and seeing the original stories and how they played out and differences between page and screen. So this video is kind of going to be a little bit of me showing off my comic book collection, what I've had and what I've read digitally and stuff like that. And also a little bit of a guide for my advice on if you want to get into comic books, what you should read, and where you can find comic books to read. So I guess we can start off by just going through what books I have and my collection. So over the years I've just picked up a bunch of different single issues from various places, from comic book shops, from antique stores will have them sometimes, some of them are gifts. I've got a bunch, mostly DC. I'm definitely more of a DC guy than Marvel, but I have a couple of Marvel comics here. A couple Batman comics. A lot of these are vintage comics, like sealed in, or not sealed, but in plastic. A couple of Superman comics, Green Lantern, and usually I'll pick it up because it's a character I'm interested in, or yeah, pretty much if it's cool looking cover, not specifically because of what the issue is or what the story is. It's more just so I can say I had that kind of comic. More Batman, a few Daredevil comics, this index of the Avengers, which I think is pretty cool. I think that's about it for the vintage comics that I have. Now most of the more recent ones I have are from DC Rebirth, which was DC's relaunch of their universe, where they like kind of started everything again. I think it was like maybe 2018, I want to say. It was a while back, but I tried to start getting into it then and it kind of fell off, just keeping up with, every issue. But I do have a bunch from DC Rebirth, the first couple of issues. Besides this one, this is New 52 Batman from the Death of the Family story arc. First couple issues of Tom Taylor's Nightwing, which we'll get into again later. First couple issues of Red Hood and the Outlaws, which I really liked this series, at least from what I read, and I wish I would have kept up with this one because I know it's no longer ongoing and they've kind of changed up the Outlaws and what Red Hood's doing. But I really like this. I would recommend this if you are a fan of Red Hood. Super Sons, which I also thought was very fun. Couple of Cyborg comics, and then these are all just random one issue that I just randomly picked off the shelf. Superman, Titans, and Justice League #1 from Rebirth. And that's about it for the DC Rebirth line. I also have Superman Red and Blue #1 and #2. This was like I think limited series, just kind of each one was an anthology of different Superman stories, and I like these two issues a lot. I would recommend these if you're a fan of Superman. And for the more recent Marvel comics I have a random Captain America from the King in Black event that went on a few years ago. And then these are super recent because I literally just picked these up the other day. Godzilla vs. Avengers and Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. I'm a fan of Godzilla, so I thought these were pretty cool. I know it's an ongoing crossover event with Marvel, so I wanted to give these a try, and they both were pretty good. So that's it for the singular issues that I've picked up, and I have 4 complete graphic novels that I also have. 2 for Marvel, 2 for DC. I guess we'll start with Marvel. I just picked this up along with those Godzilla comics. Fantastic Four from Jonathan Hickman's run, which a lot of people recommended in the comic book store. It was like, if you saw the new movie, you would probably like this, so that's exactly why I picked it up. Got this at Target, Daredevil Born Again, to prepare for the Disney Plus series, which I never ended up watching, and I haven't read this yet, but I know it is like one of the best Daredevil runs, or so people say. So eventually I'll get around to reading this too. All-Star Superman. This is one of the most famous Superman graphic novels. Had a lot of influence on the recent movie with David Cornsweet, and it's really good. I'm gonna have a hot take and say I don't really like the art too much in All-Star Superman, but I like the stories and I think it's fun and I think it's good. Thesis, I guess, for the Superman character. And then lastly, in my collection, Batman: The Long Halloween. Again, one of the most famous Batman stories, and really, really good. I want to get the sequel to this, which is Dark Victory. I just haven't gotten around to buying it yet, but this was the first ever graphic novel I bought, and I really like it a lot. It's probably my favorite story I've read so far. And that's it for what I own in my collection, but I've also read a lot more through digital stuff, and a great way to read comic books for free is to go to your local public library. Mine has a lot of graphic novels from both Marvel, DC, and independent comics. They have some pretty great stories in there. You can read like famous stuff, as I'll get into. But yeah, I would check that out if you're wanting to get into comics, but you're not sure if you want to start spending money on it just yet. So yeah, like I've said, over the past year I've really started getting into comic books, and I've started tracking it through Storygraph, which is kind of like Letterboxd, but for books, and you can find comics, or at least graphic novels usually, on there too. So over the past year, besides the one I've showed you, I have read the first 2 volumes, or I should say the first 3 volumes of Tom Taylor's run on Nightwing, which I really enjoyed. Nightwing is one of my favorite comic book characters, so it was nice to see a story with him. Great art. The art's the best part about it, so I would definitely recommend that if you're a fan of Nightwing or even Batman. Superman Smashes the Klan, which is another great quintessential Superman story. I would definitely recommend that if you became a fan after the new movie. The Infinity Gauntlet, which is the story that Infinity War is largely based off of. That was pretty good as well. And then the beginning of Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, the Disney Plus show is largely based off of. I read that, haven't gotten to the other volumes just yet. I only finished volume 1. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. That got me more into Hawkeye as a character, I think, than any of the movies or shows have. And then I've started a bunch of stuff too, like Chris Claremont's run on X-Men, the introduced characters like Colossus and Nightcrawler and Storm, and added Wolverine to the team, and new Teen Titans by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. I started that, and I think that's about it for what I can remember reading. I'm sure I've read little bits and pieces of other stuff there too. But yeah, that's just what I've started with getting into comic books. I think the best way to get into comics is to see what superheroes you like in TV or movies or video games, and just read the original stories that came from there. If you like Batman, read stuff like The Long Halloween, Year One, Dark Knight Returns. You know, those are the quintessential Batman stories. Superman, All-Star Superman, Superman for All Seasons, Superman Birthright, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, stuff like that. I'm obviously, like I said, a bit biased because I'm definitely more into DC than I am Marvel. I always have been. But I also know a little bit of stuff about Marvel. A lot of people say the best place to start with X-Men is Chris Claremont's run that, you know, like I said, reinvigorated the team and put all those characters into the spotlight. If you like Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, I've heard, is a great place to start. Really just, you know, look up a character and look up their most famous stories, start from there, and you can go on. A great way to read comics is, like I said, get at your local public library. They'll probably have several selections of graphic novels. Barnes & Noble has new graphic novels, and they have a pretty good selection too. And that goes as well for half-price books. They usually have a pretty decent selection, and for cheaper, because they're usually used. Obviously, your local comic book store will have new issues and graphic novels And the two major apps for the two major companies are Marvel Unlimited, which I've used, and DC Universe Infinite, which I haven't used, but I am debating. I'm probably going to end up trying this month to see if I like it. I really liked Marvel Unlimited, I just wasn't using it enough to justify the price. If you're into Marvel more than DC, I would definitely go for that and start reading through your favorite characters and famous story arcs and seeing where you go from there. And of course, comics aren't just superheroes, there's independent comics, and even if you do want superheroes, there's places like Image Comics, Dark Horse, IDW that's putting out stuff with Ninja Turtles, Transformers, original heroes, Spawn, all kinds of different stuff. So it doesn't just have to be limited to Marvel and DC. That's just what my experience is. And yeah, I'm hoping to read more comics, get more versed, I guess, with the original stories and the current ongoing stuff. I'm excited to see where this Godzilla stuff goes. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this video. Let me know down below if you want to hear more comic talk. Maybe I can do like comic book reviews or something like that. Give me some comic book suggestions. What stories should I read? What characters have great stories in your opinion? Who's your favorite comic book character?